You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs from my generation. They'll take the fall, the saints, the confirmation. Yeah, it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Welcome to the first Reliving the War of 2023. We're going back to the 4th of May 1998 this week, with Raw coming from Richmond, Virginia, and Nitro coming from Indianapolis, Indiana. The NBA playoffs once again affect WCW's Monday Night Wrestling show. Nitro's been cut down by 60 minutes this week, so we have no unopposed hour to look at. So let's get straight into it with head-to-heads. Before we do that though, here's this week's jam-up guy. A big thanks to Austin, and a big thanks to everyone who's paid a visit to chinlocks.com and picked up a Reliving the War shirt. Alright soldiers, let's do it. This is Reliving the War, episode 132. Raw opens up with a recap of the Dude Love Vince McMahon and Steve Austin rivalry that's been going on for a few weeks now. On Nitro, Tony Schiavone announces a Kevin Nash vs Lex Luger main event for tonight, and he also says that Brian Adams has sided with NWO Hollywood. Okay then. Mick Foley cuts a promo on Raw while Nitro starts with a match, Eddie Guerrero vs Scott Norton. So this is another Love Shack promo, but Mick Foley isn't feeling it tonight. There's no gimmick here. Foley's holding his Dude Love attire and he says he doesn't know who he is anymore. Mick says he beat Austin at Unforgiven, and how did Foley get rewarded? He didn't get a rematch, he didn't get announced as the number one contender. No, that honour went to Goldust, and tonight Foley was informed that he'll be facing Terry Funk in the Raw main event. Mick thinks Mr. McMahon wants Foley and Funk to destroy each other in the ring so Vince won't have to deal with Foley anymore. So Foley announces he's not going to throw away his career by continuing to suck up to Vince McMahon. He's also not going to let his wife and kids see him dance on stage with second-rate strippers during Love Shack segments. And Mick also announces that Dude Love is finished. Cactus Jack wants some answers, so he calls out Vince McMahon. McMahon walks out and Dude Love says he won't dress in the Dude Love gear ever again for Vince. McMahon says Foley's got guts for calling him out, and McMahon wants to know who the hell Mick thinks he is. Foley didn't get the job done at Unforgiven because Stone Cold's still WWF champion. Foley then cried and moaned when Goldust was named number one contender, and Vince expected better from Foley. Foley's just acting like all these common fans sitting in the arena. In regards to Vince punishing Foley with a Terry Funk match, Vince says it's a reward, it's an opportunity. If Foley beats his friend within an inch of his life, if he rips Terry's heart out, then that's the type of sacrifice it takes for someone to move forward and beat Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWF Championship. McMahon has confidence in Mick Foley because Mick Foley can do it. He can seize the opportunity and Foley can become the number one contender. Vince then says Foley threw Dude Love in his face, and Vince wants to know how Foley feels after getting the truth through in his face. Vince slaps Mick and Mick smiles at his boss. And then the glass shatters and Stone Cold Steve Austin walks out. Austin walks past Mick and he goes right after Vince. Vince runs away to ringside, so Stone Cold kicks inflatable chairs and he uses his bat hook to take down the Love Shack. Austin goes after Vince. Vince grabs his new weapon of choice, the ring bell, and Austin decides to head back up the ramp to destroy more stage props. What will Foley do later in the Terry Funk match? Well, stick with Reliving the War and we'll find out. Chavo comes to the ring with Uncle Eddie, and Eddie says he's going to set an example for Chavo tonight. He's going to show him how to be a winner, because not only is he Chavo's favourite wrestler, but he's our favourite wrestler too. Eddie tells Scott Norton to get himself down to the ring so Flash can take on the best wrestler in WCW today. And Eddie's pretty confident tonight. He's doing push-ups as Norton gets in the ring, and he's eager to show Chavo how to win matches like a true Guerrero. The bell rings and...
Example for his nephew,
Oh no, Eddie's hurt his knee and it looks serious. Eddie can't compete in this match, so Chavo's gonna have to do it for him, per Eddie Guerrero. This is Chavo's chance though. He gets tossed in the ring and Eddie's gonna coach from the outside. Things don't go too well at the opening bell and Eddie puts a towel over his head again. Norton goes after Eddie and Chavo takes advantage by targeting the knee, but Eddie wants his nephew to stay on his opponent and win this match. Chavo tries his best, but Norton hits him with a power slam and this gets followed up with Norton's signature shoulder breaker. Chavo has once again embarrassed the Guerrero family, but he does get some sympathy from Ultimo Dragon. Dragon comes down to check on Chavo as Eddie tells him to get out of the ring. Rock and Owen hard take on Faarooq and Steve Blackman next. On Nitro, we've got Kidman versus Scott Putski and a Wolfpac promo. As mentioned last week, Jim Ross says that Owen is the joint leader of the nation along with The Rock. It's quite an interesting addition to the faction, and it does feel like Owen was thrown into the group because the company had no idea what to do with him, but the babyface experiment is now over and Owen begins a new chapter in WWF. Slaughter sends the rest of the nation backstage, and man, what a tag team we've got here. Faarooq and Steve Blackman himself. How this didn't bring on the apocalypse, I'll never know. Blackman isn't messing around either. The motherfucker kick comes out straight away as Rock and Faarooq take it to the outside. It settles down with Faarooq and Rock in the ring, and again, there's no messing around here. Faarooq hits a Dominator right away, but Owen comes in to break up the pin. Blackman and Owen get tagged in, and the lethal weapon targets Owen's left knee. He's imagining that Owen's actually Jeff Jarrett, and Blackman has flashbacks of Unforgiven, causing him to pull off a dodgy dragon screw. Faarooq comes in and Owen's knee is still the target. A rake to the eyes though allows Owen to tag in Rock, but Faarooq has a score to settle and he hits Rocky with a pile driver. Rock's sell job here was fantastic. Quick tags ensure the heels take control though. Rock hits his float over DDT while Owen lands an elbow from the second rope. Rock's in again to hit a people's elbow, and just when you think the nation are going to win it, Faarooq comes back with a spine buster. Blackman gets the hot tag and he lands drop kicks on both Rock and Owen. Owen takes a second mofo kick, and it's still unknown to this day how Owen survived such brutality, and it could have been worse if Rock didn't come in to break up the deadly MFer lock. That dirty, stinking, rotten hyena Jeff Jarrett then shows up though to attack Steve-O, and the attack lets Owen hit a spinning wheel kick on Blackman. Owen covers our fallen hero, and the nation win this tag team match. Jeff Jarrett isn't playing with fire here, he's playing with a nuclear bomb. Rumour has it he tried to create a tag team with the giant robot monster, and even the robot monster said, "Nah mate, I'm not messing around with Steve Blackman anymore." Over on TNT, Scott Putski makes his Nitro debut. The last time we saw Scotty 2 Bocce was at WWF In Your House Ground Zero when he got that horrific knee injury. So here he is on Nitro wrestling Smackhead Kidman. Unfortunately, we don't get a clear winner here. Putski hits a clothesline and Kidman pulls off his vaulting apron leg drop, and just as Scott replies with a pop-up sit-down powerbomb, we see the Wolfpac in the audience. Savage, Nash and Konnan head to the ring, and Big Sexy welcomes Putski to WCW by hitting him with a jackknife. I guess this move is no longer outlawed. Nash grabs a mic and he says the Wolfpac are running the show from now on. He gives a shout out to Scott Hall and he says Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff thought Scott was too dangerous to have on live TV. Well, Scott's coming back for Slamboree and the Outsiders are coming after Sting and the Giant. Nash brings attention to the new colours, the red and black attack of the Wolfpac. Hogan should get his crew, Nash will bring his crew, and the crews will rendezvous. He's taken this gangster rap thing a bit too far, isn't he? Macho Man says he now knows what Bret meant when he said no one would get screwed in WCW while the Hitman's around. Bret was looking out for himself, and if it doesn't benefit Bret, then the screw jobs are just gonna continue. It's Slamboree though. Hart has a match with the Madness, and Savage is gonna screw Bret out of everything he's got, and that's a promise. Nash then announces another new member to the Red and Black NWO, and it's Curt Hennig. Brian Adams runs down to confront Curt, and Hennig tells him he knows what he's doing before continuing down to the ring. Nash calls Adams a Hogan stooge while Curt reveals his red and black shirt. Konnan challenges Adams to a match later on Nitro, and Nash tells Sting to watch the main event tonight because Big Sexy's gonna wreck his boy Lex Luger. The Wolfpac now has 5 members: Nash, Savage, Konnan, Scott Hall and Curt Hennig. What's more, the crowd are cheering for these guys like they're full-blown babyfaces already. DX cuts a promo on Raw, Chris Jericho cuts a promo on Nitro, plus we have a Barbarian and Morris versus Public Enemy rematch. Before the Raw promo, we see some bums sitting on the ground and a woman talks over this video footage.
Who is this apparition? What could have happened to this man that brought him to this place, that made him do these things, that made him say these words?
Whoever this guy is, he likes beating up random folks in the street, and he really likes the subway, it seems. The word Edge appears on the screen, and for those wondering, even Edge had no idea what these vignettes were trying to get across. He didn't know what his character was supposed to be. So, some witty banter from DX, just what the doctor ordered. Triple H does his "Are you ready?" speech. Road Dogg goes through his ladies and gentlemen stuff.
The Road Dogg, Jesse James, the badass Billy Gunn.
Shut up.
And Road Dogg says the DOA got a lucky win last week against the New Age Outlaws. Road Dogg and Billy Gunn don't turn down challenges though. They'll fight the Biker Michael Likers tonight on Raw, and the only way the DOA will get the tag team titles is if the champs shove the belts up their rusty rings. The LOD 2000 come out and Hawk says DX are a bunch of dingleberries. Lovely. And if Billy Gunn is Mr. Ass, then Road Dogg must be Mr. Hole. Very good. Hunter is Mr. Nose and China is just Mr. Hawk wants to know if the Outlaws want to change their tag team match tonight into an 8-man tag. LOD and the DOA versus D-Generation X. And X-Pac accepts the challenge. Animal says the LOD want X-Pac in the ring. This will be his first Raw match since returning to WWF after all. And then Hawk tells X-Pac he wants to talk to him.
Why don't you talk to this right here?
I can't see it.
That's it, you can't come back from that. Road Warrior Hawk just destroyed DX with 4 words. Triple H says Hawk's little Road Warrior's hiding under his big belly, but it falls flat. X-Pac tries to come back by telling Skanky and the LOD to suck it, but no, take the L, boys. You got owned by Road Warrior Hawk. On Nitro, Jericho forgot to stand for his Dean Malenko shrine, so Dave Penzer holds it up. Chris welcomes us to Monday Night Jericho, and he then says he wants to show a video of Dean Malenko speaking a few words while he was still employed by WCW. The video rolls, and Dean says he's always been proud of his father, the great Boris Malenko. Boris was always with Dean in the early days, and he's still in Dean's heart. Dean would think about his dad all the time, and before he stepped into the ring for his matches, he always reminded himself that he's the son of the great Malenko. Chris says Dean's father must be rolling in his grave. Dean's a failure, he couldn't wrestle, his brother couldn't wrestle, and neither could Boris. Dean's career was nothing but an immense joke, and the only reason WCW gave him the Man of 1,000 Holds gimmick was because Dean was so boring in the ring. Jericho then introduces a man who knows one more hold than Dean, a man who's way more exciting than Dean could ever hope to be, and a man who Jericho's now dedicating his entire career to, the great Boris Malenko. Some job dude comes down to the ring and Jericho says you can tell this guy's been working out recently. For those curious, this is WCW job guy Johnny Boone, who's had 11 pro matches in his entire career, 10 of which were in WCW, and he won a total of 0 matches. He goes for a wrist lock to start things off, but he almost gets his head removed from his shoulders after a clothesline. Jericho suplexes Boris, he hits him with a back body drop, Boris gets put away with a lion tamer, and there you go. Quality pro wrestling, folks. Absolute quality. Jericho's promo works fantastic though, and he really has been one of the most entertaining aspects of Monday Nitro since the beginning of 1998. Following this match, we get a Nitro Girls dance, and we have a visitor. A very big visitor.
Oh, come on, Mark. Germans. Sausages.
Of course.
Time to get the baby lotion and the tissues, baby. Show me your bratwurst, Alex.
Oh, big blacklist.
Doug Dillinger is quickly becoming WCW's top heel because once again he and his security goon escort Alex away when Alex just wanted to share the gift of dance to us lowly peasants. Alex is sent backstage where he'll get a good sing to by the boys. For some reason, WCW booked a rematch this week, Public Enemy versus Hugh Morris and the Barbarian, and really, it's just more of the same. The commentators explained that Jimmy Hart demanded this rematch, Jimmy gets involved a little more in this one, and I need to make it clear that this wasn't a 3-on-2 match because the match ends when Jimmy Hart gets pinned. No idea what's happening, but the finish sees Barbarian jumping off the top rope and going through a table. Jimmy Hart can then be seen smiling and laughing as he gets scooped up by Johnny Grunge for a body slam. Jimmy then takes a splash and the match ends. Last week, Buff Bagwell joined Reliving the War to talk about the Vicious and Delicious versus Luger and Steiner match from Thunder. When we left off, Buff thought he was paralysed in the ring after the botched top rope bulldog. Here's the conclusion of Buff Daddy's story about the accident, and once again, a big thank you to Buff Bagwell for coming on the show.
Buff the stuff and the girl just can't get it.
What am I going to do the rest of my life, man? That day, before I came to Columbia, South Carolina, on April 24th, 1998, I stroked a check for $88,000 for my property to build my house on. 88 grand. I climb into an $85,000 Jag and I drive to the ending of my life and the ending of my career. I think, that's what I'm thinking in my head. I instantly embraced the fact that the rest of my life, I was going to be paralyzed. I was convinced 100%. Bobby Heenan leaves the announcing stand, and he finds out really what's going on, comes back, and then you'll hear that play out with Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan. And they're trying to figure it out, and then they do figure it out during the process. Well, they put me on the board. I start kind of moving I can't look like this. I look down like this, and I can feel my hand moving. And I swear to you, hot water is what it felt like, goes up my arm, but it stops right here. And then hot water comes up this arm. And then each leg it comes up, and it comes up here. But it doesn't do my core. And if you look close, this left hand, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong. Now I'm moving my neck a little bit. I feel my chest to see if I can feel my own chest, and I can't. And I put my hand right back down. So watch for that and you'll see it. I go like this and I put it right back down because I don't feel it. And the rest of it wasn't on tape, I don't think, or on film, but they put me on the board, they strap my forehead down, they strap all my arms down, but I can move my fingers and my toes. And I start asking everybody. I said, am I paralyzed? And nobody will say nothing. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I go, hey man, am I paralyzed? And keep in mind, now I'm taped down and can't move anything anyway. And I'm going, hey man, am I paralyzed? Nobody says nothing again. I finally go, hey man, I go, am I paralyzed? And the guy whispers in my ear, he goes, we can't tell you nothing, man, so quit asking because we don't know. We don't know, buddy. So at least I heard something. I said, thanks, man, because it made sense to me. So I think Bischoff, I know Sting and Lex went in the ambulance, and I think Bischoff went. But I know it was Lex and Sting, and we get to the hospital. At this stage, there's hope for me because I'm wiggling my fingers and my toes. So, man, here comes MRIs. Can't move anything, not even this. MRI, 2 MRIs, a CAT scan, and another thing. It was like 3 hours later. So what's the answer? What's going on, man? And he goes, you medically have bruised your spinal cord. There's a cervical disc in between each one of your vertebrae. At 3-4, the cervical disc, when my neck went back, shot and hit my spinal cord. When it bruised it at 3-4, it swells. When it swells, you feel like if you had it done, like you're 100% paralyzed, 100%. And then when the swelling goes down, you can move again. So I didn't know this, obviously. So as the swelling had gone back down over the 3 hours, the doctor goes, set up. And I went, what? And he goes, set up, man. And so very slowly, keep in mind, 3 hours ago, my life was over. It was over, man. And now I got a doctor telling me, set up. So obviously I start setting up, but as I start to move, I realize that everything feels 100% normal. Wait a minute, and I turn my legs, I let my legs fall off the table, and I'm kind of going like this, and of course I go up to a double bicep, and I go, oh my God, I'm okay. He goes, you're okay. He said, but we've got to do surgery on you as soon as you can. If you get shoved in the back, if you fall in the shower, if you get in a car wreck, and because it's right there at your spinal cord, it could do it again, but it could sever it this time. He says, so you got to go in and get this done. So I call my chiropractor, and he gives me 3 doctors' names. The first doctor I call, I tell him the situation. He says, your career is over. And I was like, are you kidding, man? Really? I mean, over? He goes, over, man. You can never wrestle again. So I go to the second number. I call him up and I go, tell him the whole situation. And he says, your career's over, bro. I mean, wipe it off. I was like, oh my God. So I call the third doctor, a female neck surgeon. Your career's over, bro. You need to never wrestle again. I said, oh my God, you've got to be kidding. Now I've got 3 answers. My career's over. And I say, she goes, as I'm kind of trying to adjust to realizing my career is over, she goes, but I do want to tell you something. If you're not going to wrestle again, you don't need a shower again. You never need to ride your motorcycle again. Don't ever get in a car again. And I'm going, wait a minute, what are you talking about? She goes, I'm saying that you could do what you did in the ring again by doing any of those things. You could fall in the shower and break your neck. You could drive a car and get in a car wreck and do your neck and break it. So I'm telling you, quit living life or go back to wrestling. And I said, that's the answer I wanted to hear. So in 3 months, I was back on television. And in 10 months, my first match back was Bill Goldberg and Rick Steiner against me and Scott Steiner. And the company wanted me to take the Bulldog again. And I went, guys, y'all gotta be kidding me. I'm never taking the Bulldog for the rest of my life. But anyway, that's the story of April 24th, 1998. Thanks a lot, man, and thanks for letting me explain it the right way, the way Buff Bagwell remembers it. And man, if you ever need me for anything, go to marcusbuffbagwell@gmail.com or go to marcusbuffbagwell.com is my website. And I'd love to hear from you guys. And again, thanks a lot. And Buff Daddy is out.
We've got Dan Severn taking on Savio Vega next. Nice knowing you, Savio. On Nitro, we've got Saturn versus Van Hammer again. Dan Severn walks alone like Dave Batista tonight. He's no longer affiliated with Jim Cornette. Savio gets taken down straight away, and as Vega tries to fight back and bring Beastie Boy to the corner, the WWF promote the upcoming UFC 17 event happening on May 15th. Check this out, Savio gets brought down again with a belly-to-belly and he no-sells it. He gets straight back up and he looks genuinely frustrated with how things are playing out. Dan gets choked in the corner, Savio then performs a hip toss, and that's going to be enough for Mr. Severn. Vega takes a power slam before Dan locks in the armbar, and Savio gives it up while Dan the Man turns into a vicious wild animal.
He's an animal!
An animal! An animal! Seriously though, that's quite the face you're pulling there, Daniel. Remind me to never get on this man's bad side, like ever. On Nitro, Bryan Adams says he's one of Hulk Hogan's main enforcers, apparently. He says Hulk Hogan made the NWO and he made professional wrestling. He's done more than the entire Wolfpac put together times 10. He accepts Konnan's challenge for a match tonight while wiping the Hulk Hogan brown stuff from his nose and his chin. So this third Saturn vs Hammer match on Nitro has a big stipulation. The loser has to leave the flock. If it were me, I'd be laying down in the middle of that ring and leaving that faction ASAP because it's dying a slow and painful death right now. Kidman says this stipulation was ordered by Raven, and Raven also sent a message to Saturn: do what you gotta do to win. Hammer gets in a cheap shot before the opening bell and Saturn gets dropped on the ring steps when the match spills to the outside. Back in the ring, Hammer pulls off a crop backslide airplane spin followed by a clothesline, and Saturn replies with a German suplex. It goes back to the outside and we cut over to the dreaded WCW Nitro split screen. We see the flock hanging out in their locker room watching the match unfold, and back in the ring, Hammer catches Saturn in mid-air for a big power slam. We then see a super vertical suplex from Van Hammer, but Saturn answers with his gargoyle suplex. He then performs a top rope leg drop that could have made Psychosis jealous, and then Perry grabs a steel chair. The chair gets used as a springboard and Hammer gets drop kicked. The second attempt leads to a referee bump though, and then the commentators notice a vendor's just jumped the guardrail. The supplier of delicious beverages gets in the ring and he smacks Saturn with his drinks tray. He then hits Hammer with a steel chair, and Hammer lands on top of Saturn. Hammer wins via pinfall, so Saturn's out of the flock, I guess. Raven goes to check the damage, but DDP infiltrates the flock's locker room. Everyone gets taken out before the master of the diamond cutter focuses on Raven. Raven takes a few great looking bumps on the shutters backstage before DDP uses his bull rope to bring him out to the arena. Check out this perfectly timed pyro right here. In the ring, Raven evens the odds with a low blow. He goes for an even flow, but DDP fights back and Raven ends up in a bad position when thrown over the top rope. The commentators say this is getting a bit dangerous, so WCW's biggest villain, Doug Dillinger, runs in with the boys to break things up. Jerry Lawler interviews Paul Bearer next on Raw, plus we have Mark Mero versus Jeff Jarrett. On Nitro, Sick Boy takes on Juventud Guerrera. Jerry Lawler and Paul Bearer pose for the upcoming interview, but instead of taking a commercial break, the cameras keep rolling and viewers eavesdrop on what's supposed to be a private conversation between Jerry and Paul, and this is very well done. The two break character a little when Jerry asks for his water and Paul can't find his soft drink, but the two sit down and Jerry wants to know, completely off the record, about Paul's relationship with the Undertaker's mother. Paul says Kane really is his son, and Jerry wants to know if, quote, Paul really nailed the Undertaker's mother. Paul tells Jerry the story. He went to the wrestling matches when he was 19 years old, and when he came back to the funeral home, Mummy Taker was wearing a revealing outfit. Paul had never been with a woman before, even though he was quite studly. Paul's words, not mine. Paul says Mummy Taker took him right there on the kitchen floor, and Jerry said Paul buried his baloney in the Undertaker's mother. Wonderful. Apparently she was moaning, groaning and screaming. Paul heard little footsteps upstairs, and it's a good thing he got up because it was little Undertaker coming down for some grated cheese. Taker could have saw his mummy with one foot in New York and the other in LA. We then cut to commercial break and we come back to a formal apology from Jerry Lawler. He says he didn't mean for this conversation to make the air, and he apologises to the WWF and WWF viewers if anyone got offended. Before Mark Mero makes his way to the ring for his match against Double J, we see a Sable training video. She's getting ready for a fight with her husband, so Marvelous Mark better get prepared too. Mr. Mero unfortunately doesn't get a chance to brush up on his ring work on Raw this week though, so let me explain. Sweet T Lee announces that Double J's on his way to the ring. A red carpet gets rolled out for the fake Double J. Jarrett struts to the ring, but then a big motherfucking problem arrives. Not only did Double J interfere in Blackman's match earlier, but Jeff also tried to ruin this man's life with a country concert at Unforgiven. So we don't get to see Mero versus Jarrett. We do, however, get to see Steve Blackman destroy Double J as the most hated rivalry in WWF continues on. Something's got to give, ladies and gentlemen. opinion, these two need to settle this in the ring. More flock nonsense over on Nitro next as Juventud Guerrero tries to get revenge for last week's attack. He doesn't do too well at the opening bell as Sick Boy lays in the corner strikes, and then Sick Boy innovates with this fireman's carry slam. Mark Curtis can't believe it, such a beautiful move. Juventud gets choked on the mat before firing back with a drop kick and a spinning wheel kick. We then get this botch right here and Mike Tenay blames it on the wet ring. I mean, yeah, it's a great excuse actually. Guerrero performs a springboard dropkick, he then goes for a Juvi driver and, again this gets blamed on the wet ring, or at least that's what the commentators want viewers to believe, but that one looked very sketchy indeed. The 450 gets stopped by Horace Boulder and the two flock members attack Guerrero in the ring. Mark Curtis calls for the bell, but Juvi manages to defend himself when he ducks an attack from Sick Boy. Reese's dipped pretzels then gets inside the ropes and Juvi's about to get another beating from the big man, but then Goldberg hits the ring. Turns out Billy Boy has some time to help Juvi this week. Sick Boy gets speared, the Yeti gets jackhammered, and the crowd again are left wanting more as the US champion leaves the ring. Even when Goldberg's gone, the crowd are still on their feet going crazy. D-Generation X compete in that 8-man tag match next on Raw. On Nitro we have a Rick Steiner promo and the Bryan Adams vs Konnan match. I wouldn't really have any interest in this DX match at all if Sean Waltman wasn't wrestling in it. I'm a big DX fan, but the appeal of their opponents is at an all-time low right now. Sonny gets sent to the back before DX make their entrance, and then after DX's entrance, we learn that Chyna is going to wrestle tonight when Mike Chioda tries to send her backstage too. X-Pac isn't fighting here on Raw's War, and I feel completely ripped off if I'm honest, but it's still going to be interesting seeing Chyna wrestle here on Raw. As a matter of fact, this is Chyna's WWF in-ring debut. So, you know what? I don't think many of us care much to see the Outlaws and Triple H fight the DOA and LOD again, so let's go straight to Chyna. The other members of DX all get in the ring for some physicality, and Chyna coming into the match is built up as a pretty big deal. The crowd pops when Billy Gunn tags out and the ninth wonder of the world comes in. She hits a Hurricane Rana on 8-ball, or Skull maybe, who cares? The backer Michael Liker kicks out of the follow-up pin and Chyna tags out again. Yay, more Road Dogg. We come back from a commercial break and Hunter delivers his face breaker knee smash to Hawk. Chyna then gets tagged in once again and she kicks Hawk a few times while he's still on the mat. She then sits on the top turnbuckle to prepare for an aerial attack, but Hawk hits the ropes and Chyna tumbles out of the ring. She gets right back up and Hawk gets his little Road Warrior smashed when the referee wasn't looking. DX then attack Hawk while Chyna baits the babyfaces. Chyna tags out and yay, more Road Dogg. And this gets followed up by Triple H and Billy Gunn also getting back in the ring, and well, I'm not saying Chyna's the best wrestler of the bunch here, but the match only really gets interesting when she gets tagged in. We don't get any more offense from Chyna, but we do get an argument between Animal and a dirty old asshole. Hawk gets involved and 8-ball gets shoved, and that's going to be the end of our match. The babyface team fight on the outside, the LOD use steel chairs at one point, but watch this back and you'll notice that it gets absolutely no reaction whatsoever. There is a cheer when Hawk lifts up the ring steps, but that's about it. We don't even see DX's reaction to all this, it's just really flat, and speaking of really flat, this probably means we're going to get a Legion of Doom versus DOA rivalry very soon. During the break, the fight continues, and Jerry Lawler thinks this was all a ploy by the LOD to ensure the DOA didn't get a title shot tonight. Over on Nitro, Mean Gene Okerlund wants to talk about Rick Steiner's relationship with brother Scott. Rick wants Scott to come out and face him. He wants Scott to decide right now if he's going to make peace or if he's going to continue to fight his own flesh and blood while continuing to run with the NWO. Rick says he knows his brother has guts because he's a Steiner, but he needs to show some heart by coming out and making a decision right now on Nitro. Scott comes out on crutches and Rick says, "You've got to be kidding me." Rick knows his brother's playing games, but Scott says he made a mistake. He's lost friends. Mommy and Daddy Steiner won't talk to him the same way anymore. Scott knows there's a chance that his friend Buff Bagwell may never wrestle again, so Scott's taking his life into account right now, and he believes there's no reason for the Steiners to continue this fight. Rick says the brothers either fight right now or they leave the arena together, and Scott says Hulk Hogan means nothing to him. The NWO also means nothing to him. Scott gets upset when he says he wants to be a Steiner brother once again. When Rick tells Mean Gene he doesn't believe his own brother, Scott goes to leave, but Rick then calls Scott back and he says he'll give Scott a chance. If Scott wants it to work, then the brothers can make it work. Scott says he just wants it to be like the way it was before, and the brothers embrace while the crowd applauds. Brian Adams then comes out with a baseball bat and Rick gets taken out. It was all a setup. Rick takes a shoulder breaker and Scott absolutely loves it. He tells Adams to attack Rick for what he did to Buff Bagwell, and Adams is more than happy to follow orders. Brian then heads to the ring for his match against Konnan, so we've got an NWO Hollywood versus NWO Wolfpac match here on Nitro. Konnan throws his jacket on Adams' head to get an early advantage. He hits his rolling clothesline, and this gets followed up with a low drop kick. Adams replies with a pile driver, and I've noticed he kinda leans to one side when he does these, and they never look all that good. Konnan gets thrown to the outside and then Bret Hart runs down to help out. Konnan takes a guardrail shot and Schiavone says this is undeniable proof that Bret Hart's siding with Hulk Hogan. Bret leaves, Adams performs a press slam back in the ring. Konnan then takes a backbreaker, and just when Adams pulls off a tilt-a-whirl power slam, big sexy Kevin Nash hits the ring and he kicks Brian in the head. The referee disqualifies Konnan, and we then see a big jackknife in the middle of the ring. Brian Adams isn't a small dude at all, and the jackknife looked great, but it's a DQ victory for NWO Hollywood. Kane versus Goldust on Raw, and the TV titles on the line on Nitro. It's Booker T versus Fit Finlay. The commentators speculate that Mr. McMahon has put Goldust in this match as punishment for losing last week to Steve Austin. This is also Kane's first real match on Raw's War, if you can believe it. He was booked to face Stone Cold on the March 2nd show, but that match didn't happen. Goldust shows no fear and he tries to take the lead when Kane misses a clothesline. He goes for the burned arm and hand, and this proves to be somewhat successful. Kane now has a weak point for the first time ever, however that won't stop him from ignoring the pain momentarily and fighting back. On the outside, Goldust tries to smash Kane's arm on the ring post, but the Big Red Machine avoids it and the match gets back inside the ropes. And then The Undertaker dashes down to attack Paul Bearer, the man who porked his mom. Kane goes out to help, but Taker goes after the Big Red Machine's burned hand and the brothers fight on the entranceway. Paul wonders if it was all worth it. Was it worth shooting Mummy Taker with his pump-action yogurt rifle? And he says, yeah, totally worth it. Over on Nitro, we have a TV title match between Booker T and Finlay, though keep in mind Booker T granted Chris Benoit another shot at the belt at Slamboree. Absolutely no complaints about that at all. Every match between those two so far has ranged from good to excellent. A good strong lockup starts us off here with Finlay coming out on top. Booker takes a snapmare and a kick to the back, and as Finlay brings it down to the mat, Mike Tenay announces that again this week there will be no episode of Thunder on TBS. Booker replies with a spinning back kick before sending Finlay to the outside. A few forearm shots keep Booker in control, but when the match gets back in the ring, Finlay lands a short arm clothesline. Finlay, however, has trouble staying on Booker T. The TV champ lands his running forearm, followed by his signature axe kick. We then see a
Sidewalk slam!
and this one should be pretty much over at this point. Chris Benoit walks down to the ring and Booker notices the crippler standing on the outside. This small distraction that includes no contact at all costs Booker the TV title though, and Finlay goes on offense and he immediately hits Booker with a tombstone piledriver. Fit Finlay is the new TV champion. Schiavone calls this an upset, so what this means for Slamboree, I have no idea. We wrap things up this week with Kevin Nash versus Lex Luger on Nitro. On Raw, Mick Foley takes on Terry Funk in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Let's go through the Nitro match first because it's a bit disappointing. Nash comes down to the ring with Savage and Konnan while Lex comes to the ring all alone. Yeah, smart move, Luger. Luger ducks a clothesline at the opening bell and he goes on offense right away with strikes. Nash takes a few corner punches next, but then Konnan jumps on the apron and Big Sexy's able to hit Luger with a big boot. Luger takes a few back elbows. Konnan chokes Luger right in front of the referee, but the match continues on. Nash then chokes Luger in the corner with his big boot, and listen to the audience.
Give you a feeling of confidence if you're a guy like Kevin Nash. Not only being being 7 feet tall.
The crowd are chanting for the Wolfpac. At this rate, they're going to get positioned as fan favourites. Lex takes a corner clothesline. On the second attempt, Luger gets the boot up in the corner. It's always the boot up in the corner. Nash then takes a few clotheslines as Luger goes through his usual routine, but then the Wolfpac get involved and it ends in disqualification. The crowd were chanting Wolfpac just a few seconds ago, and now they're booing because it's still a typical NWO finish. The crowd pops though, and Sting and Giant hit the ring. The Wolfpac back up for a moment, but then Nash goes for the Giant and Sting goes after Konnan. The crowd cheers as a fight breaks out, but then we see Brian Adams heading to the ring. Bret Hart though stops Adams from getting involved. He tells Adams to stop and just take a look. There's two groups of Hulk Hogan enemies in the ring right now beating each other up, so Adams doesn't have to do a thing. This is how Nitro ends. The show fades out while the camera remains on Bret and Adams. The WWF do a great job when hyping up this Funk vs Foley match. They play a video showing their history together, and the video itself has been put together really well. You get ECW footage here, footage from Japan, and footage of how both men got together in WWF. Immediately after this video ends, we see Val Venus playing outdoors. Looks like he's playing Army Man or something, and check this out, there's Jenna Jameson, also playing Army Man. I had the desire to look up Jenna and see how she's doing at the end of 2022, but then I decided against it. Leave the memories alone, brother. The two notice a bug on the ground, so they go down to take that sucker out. We go to the arena, and Stone Cold's going to provide commentary for this upcoming main event. Terry Funk then comes out, Mick Foley comes out with no gimmick and no entrance music, and then an announcement gets made. This match will have a special guest referee, and it's Pat Patterson, another one of McMahon's corporate stooges. Foley brings it to the corner right away, but Terry comes out swinging and Foley takes a few shots. Mick then gets thrown out of the ring and he does a little damage to Funk at the guardrail, but things then get crazy with 3 chair shots right to Foley's head. He didn't put his hands up for a single shot. After getting slapped around a little, Mick gets up and he hits Funk's head off the ring steps before landing a chair shot of his own. The tough as nails Terry Funk shakes it off though, and Mick gets his head rammed into the commentary table and the guardrail. It gets back in the ring where Foley performs a swinging neck breaker, and it doesn't take long for the match to go back to the outside. Austin's having issues with his headset and he's not amused at all. He ends up punching Jerry Lawler in the face so he can take the King's headset, but the audio problems continue and it appears someone might be messing around with Stone Cold backstage. I wonder who it could be. We miss the ring step bump that leads to Foley getting busted open. Mick tries to hit a pile driver on the exposed floor, but Funk counters with a backdrop, and the match then goes into the audience. Stone Cold says this is quality entertainment. Foley attacks the hot dog guy and Funk attacks Foley with an oversized plastic Pepsi cup. Funk then climbs up the stands and he takes out Foley and a few food vendors with a moonsault, but it looks like Terry's hurt his shoulder after performing the move. Foley gets up before Funk and he puts Terry through a table with a pile driver, and before Raw takes its final break, we see Mick and Funk going underneath the bleachers. During the commercial break, the two fought backstage, and when we go back to the live feed, the two start heading back to the arena. Funk gets planted with a DDT on the rampway. The two get in the ring once again, and in a matter of seconds, the two are back on the outside. Funk gets set on the commentary table and Foley jumps off the apron while holding a chair, and then Foley and Austin share words. Stone Cold says he'll beat Mick when the time comes. Inside the ring, Foley performs a double arm DDT. Funk kicks out, so Mick hits Terry with 2 pile drivers. The second was on a steel chair, and Mick Foley wins the match to once again become #1 contender. Foley then attacks Terry after the bell, and Austin's seen enough. Stone Cold gets in the ring and he throws a beer on Foley. Now blinded, Foley applies the mandible claw on Pat Patterson, mistaking the stooge for Stone Cold. Mick eventually lets go and Patterson tries to cheap shot Austin with a chair shot, but he takes a Stone Cold stunner while Foley gets out of the ring. Dude Love's music then begins to play. McMahon walks out with the groupies in the Dude Love ring attire, and it looks like the Dudester is back. Foley and McMahon embrace, they celebrate, they dance on the stage, and Austin can't help but laugh. Vince just did not care about making an ass out of himself, and you gotta admit, it's kinda funny seeing him act this way. A tremendously entertaining main event on Raw's War this week. I had this one as a tie, but if you look at the best things both shows had to offer, then Raw comes out on top. The backstage conversation with Paul Bearer and the Raw main event were the highlights of the WWF show, while on Nitro you got a good Steiner Brothers promo along with a good but brief fight between Raven and DDP. The Nitro main event was awful though, and the show getting kinda centered around Bryan Adams was an odd choice for sure, so I'm gonna go with Raw this week. Raw has 63 points on our leaderboard, Nitro has 55, and we're still on 14 ties. In the TV ratings, Raw beat Nitro with a 5.5 rating. Nitro only managed a 3.5 due to the playoffs. This is a crucial time in the Monday Night War, and WCW jobbing out to the NBA on TNT really hasn't helped them at all. Next week on Nitro, Dusty Rhodes lets us know what's going on with NWO founding father Scott Hall. Bill Goldberg's in action once again, and this dude's back in action too. Great. On Raw next week, Big Vader steps back inside the ropes against Barry Windham. We see that Mark Mero versus Sable matchup. And D-Generation X continue to torment WCW with a visit to the CNN Center. Join me for more Reliving the War next week. Thank you very, very much for watching, and take care.